Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I want to tell you about this lovely book right here, which is the final Strife by Sara El-Arifi, and the first book in the Ending Fires or something. I forgot what the series is called exactly. I am very sorry about that, but it's the first book in a series. This was also the book club pick for my book club back in July or August, I think. I want to say August, but I'm not 100% sure. And so my book club, of course, is of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, and in that book club we read one adult high fantasy written by a woman or genderqueer person per month. So if you're interested in joining us, in December we're reading Kaikeyi. The links to the Discord and to Twitter are down below. But back to this book now, and back to the review. As always, I will start with a summary of the book and then get into my thoughts on the book. But the summary, I'm gonna try and keep it short, although this is adult high fantasy, so who am I kidding? Summaries are really short for those books. However, let's start at the beginning. This is an African-Arabian inspired debut novel. It is adult fantasy, although I would put it more into the space between YA and adult fantasy, where a lot of the themes and the characters and the writing style very much are similar to YA. However, it gets a lot darker than YA usually would get within its content matters, and it can also touch on stuff that maybe isn't touched upon as often within YA. This is set in a land that every night is ravaged by sandstorms that are getting worse and worse. Basically, if you're outside during a sandstorm, you are dead. Like, there's no chance you're alive, you're 100% dead because your skin and flesh is stripped from your bone. And in this world also we have a caste system based on blood. The highest ranking members of society are the red-blooded people. While not everyone who is red-blooded is nobility, they are generally the people who rule. Then you have blue-blooded, so-called dusters, who are the workers of societies. They have to work hard on plantations a lot of times, and their lives generally suck. And then you have the so-called, I believe, ghosts, whose lives suck even more. They are generally speaking servants. Their blood is transparent. However, their lives don't suck because they're servants. Their lives suck because as soon as a new ghost child is discovered, they're mutilated. Their hands and their tongue is taken, and they have to live like that from that point onwards. So for this book in general, I don't know all the content warnings off the top of my head. I know there's at least some for, as I said, mutilation obviously, but also addiction. But look up content warnings before you dive into this book if you need any. So the plot as a whole follows the subverted chosen one trope. We have our chosen one, our supposedly chosen one, Sila, who is red-blooded. However, she has grown up with a blue-blooded rebellion who have kidnapped her from her parents when she was a child. The reason for that was that there's a competition held every 10 years to choose the new rulers of the land. And so the Duster Rebellion thought that if they kidnap a bunch of red-blooded children and raise them, then their loyalties will be to the blue-blooded. And then once they enter them into the competition, and hopefully a bunch of them win, then they can change things for everyone. Our main character, Sila, was supposed to be such a child. However, when we find her at the beginning of this book, she isn't more than a thug, mostly, who fights for money, and that money she needs because she is severely addicted to a substance that I forgot the name of, and without which she can hardly function anymore. We don't really learn why she is in that position at the beginning of the story. We only learn that later on. However, because of this addiction, she kind of fucks up signing up for the competition. And so, yeah, she failed the one job that she basically had. However, what happens instead is that through a set of circumstances, she ends up training the daughter of one of the current rulers to win the competition, and that daughter has maybe her own little secrets. Also, the story is sapphic. So now that I told you a little bit of what this story is about, let's get more into my thoughts on this book. Which, to be honest, will be kind of vague because we all know it. My memory, if I wait too long to review a book, is terrible. And it's the case here as well. So what are my thoughts on this book, starting with the more negative thoughts? I mean, to be honest, I don't think the writing style was too outstanding. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was kind of the writing style that I always describe as it's a tool to get the story across. Nothing more, nothing less. So the writing style wasn't anything special, but also it doesn't really fit it being negative. I did take a bit to warm up to most of the characters, to be honest. I wasn't the biggest fan of them. Also, I think that in terms of character progression, there was one character where I just thought that the switch and their change in personality came a bit too sudden. But like, a lot of the negative things that I have about this book, I can't really talk about because this is a spoiler-free review, obviously. So it's kind of hard. There's some things where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that in terms of the power dynamics within the story and in terms of the messaging within the story of who the oppressors are, who the oppressed are. But again, I can't go into that without going into spoiler territory, so sorry for being awfully vague right now. I, to be honest, wasn't the biggest fan of the romance, if I remember correctly, but that is nothing new, to be honest. I feel like I say that more often than not now in books. There is by now very, very few books where I'm like, yeah, I ship this. I love this romance. Mostly I'm like, yeah, it's a romance. It's alright. I don't know, maybe I'm just out of that phase of my life. I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. So not really gonna talk about the negatives in this video, I guess. So let's move on to positive things. I really, really enjoyed the representation, I guess. I would call it in this book, like, on all fronts. I really loved how disability was dealt with within this book. I feel like that's the wrong way to put it, because most of the representation of disability within this book is obviously because the ghosts were mutilated, so they don't have hands and they have to use a lot of different tools to help them get around. And also they have to use specific sign language, because obviously when you think of sign language within our world, it uses the hands a lot. Ghosts don't have hands, however they do have a sign language that is very present and quite frequently used. So I really loved that it was present like that within the story. I also, I didn't enjoy is kind of the wrong word, but I appreciated, you know, that Sala was a character. She was really shown to be the only character who consciously made an effort to communicate with ghosts. All others kind of, you know, ignore them a lot or just, you know, stay away from them. And that was handled, in my opinion, as someone who obviously isn't an own voices reviewer in any way, was handled with sensitivity. Along the same lines, Sila's addiction was really handled well. It's not that she's addicted and then she just curbs her addiction completely. No, it's something that she constantly struggles with throughout the book, and that I believe she will still struggle with in future books. So it was something that was very present, and that was a big part of who Sala was as a character, this addiction and dealing with this addiction. I kind of enjoyed Sala as a character, like, in total, I would say. Like, I don't think she's a person I would like if I knew her personally, but I liked her as a character in a story. I found her to be really interesting. I found the approach of kind of failed chosen one very interesting, although I am not 100% sure that she really is a failed chosen one, or if she's gonna take over the role of a chosen one in future books after all. But for this first book, I thought it was very interesting. Aside from that, the other characters I really enjoyed. I forgot the name of all characters, I swear. I only remembered Silas' name because it's on the back, literally. Like, there was... oh, it wasn't a ghost, it was ghosting. Sorry. It was so close, so close. But there was this ghosting friend that Sila had. I really, really love her. The girl that Sila trains, I just saw her name, so I remember it. Anur, I was like, it's whatever. And aside from that, as I said, one other character I really enjoyed that I forgot the name of. But that character kind of had a character progression that I wasn't really a fan of how it was written. In total, I would say, and this review once again has been a review that has kind of been all over the place. By the way, I remembered one thing I didn't like. Like, the main thing I didn't like is like the plans that they had just seem really naive. Like the plans that most of the characters have for what they're gonna do seem really naive, but not in a way where the narrative portrays them as naive, but where the narrative portrays them as valid. And I was like, I'm not too sure about that. But yeah, I had quite some issues with the book. I liked the characters. I was interested in the plot. I was interested in the world building. I am, so on how a lot of the themes were handled within the book. I think I'll have to see how it progresses in future books to really make my opinion on that. But overall, I think I gave it 3.5 stars when I read it. I enjoyed it well enough. I think I can really recommend it. I think it's a very intriguing debut novel, especially, like, remember that, it's a debut novel, so it's the first book in a series. I think it's ideal, especially if you're coming from YA and just want some books that are a little bit darker. But aside from that, I think that is all I have to say about this book. I think I can recommend it. I'm excited to see where the story goes in the second book. And yeah, with all of that said, tell me, did I now discourage you from picking up this book, or did I not? I hope I did not, because I did genuinely enjoy it. Just sometimes I remember the negative stuff more than I remember the positive stuff, you know? It just be like that sometimes. If you have read the book, tell me in the comments down below what were your thoughts on it. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club are linked in the description box down below, so go and check those out. And I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!